Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UES Liberty as it drifted through the cold darkness of space near Kepler Station. The diplomatic vessel had been waiting for 3 days in the neutral zone between human and alien territory. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the main screen showing the distant stars. Something felt wrong today, but he could not put his finger on what it was. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Murphy worked at her station monitoring long-range sensors. Chief Communications. Officer Ryan Clark sat at his post checking for any incoming messages. The crew had been on edge for weeks, ever since reports came in about alien fleets moving closer to human space. Suddenly, Ryan's console started beeping rapidly. He pressed several buttons, and his face went pale. "Captain, we have an incoming transmission on the emergency diplomatic channel. It's encrypted with galactic hegemony codes." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Galactic Hegemony Council ruled over 7 different alien species and controlled most of this part of the galaxy. They had ignored humanity for decades, but recent human expansion into new star systems had apparently caught their attention. "Put it through to my ready room, Ryan. Sarah, you have the bridge." Jake walked into his private office behind the bridge and activated the secure communication system. The holographic projector came to life, showing a tall alien figure with dark blue skin and 4 arms. Jake recognized the creature immediately as Overlord Zethkri of the Valdorian Empire. The aliens. Red eyes stared directly at Jake through the transmission. "Human Captain Morrison, I am Overlord Zethkri, speaking for the Galactic Hegemony Council. You will listen carefully, as I will say this only once." The alien's voice was cold and mechanical. "Your species has expanded beyond acceptable limits. You have colonized 17 new worlds in the past 5 years without permission from the Council. This aggressive behavior threatens the stability of our region." Jake remained silent as the alien continued speaking. He had been trained for diplomatic situations, but this felt different. There was no room for negotiation in the alien's tone. "The Council has made a decision regarding humanity. You have exactly 72 hours to comply with our demands. First, your species will surrender all military vessels to hegemony forces. Second, all human colonies will accept protective custody status under Council oversight. Third, your homeworld Earth will submit to direct hegemony rule." The alien paused and leaned closer to the camera. "Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of all human settlements and the elimination of your species." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Jake staring at the empty holographic space. His hands were shaking as he processed what he had just heard. The most powerful alliance in the galaxy had just threatened to wipe out humanity unless they surrendered completely. Jake activated his emergency communication system and sent an urgent message to Earth Command. Within an hour, Jake received orders to return immediately to Earth. The Liberty's engines roared to life as the ship turned toward human space. During the 3-day journey home, Jake could not sleep or eat properly. He kept thinking about the alien's words and the casual way he had threatened genocide. When the Liberty arrived at Earth orbit, Jake was immediately transported to the underground command center beneath the Australian mountains. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez was waiting for him along with the entire senior staff of Earth's military forces. The command center was buzzing with activity as officers worked at dozens of computer stations. Admiral Rodriguez was a tough woman in her 50s who had served in the frontier wars against space pirates. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, and her brown eyes were serious as she greeted Jake. "Captain Morrison, we received your report about the hegemony ultimatum. Tell us everything you observed during the transmission." Jake described every detail of his conversation with Overlord Zethkri. He explained the alien's tone and body language. The assembled officers listened carefully, taking notes. When Jake finished speaking, the room fell silent. Commander Peter Blake was the first to speak. He was Admiral Rodriguez's second in command and had experience fighting in space battles. Admiral, our current fleet consists of 200 ships, including frigates, cruisers, and carriers. Intelligence reports suggest the hegemony can field over 3,000 vessels. We cannot win a direct confrontation. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster nodded in agreement. She was in charge of planetary defense systems and knew their limitations. Our orbital defense platforms around Earth and the major colonies could hold out for maybe a week against a full-scale attack. After that, we would be defenseless. Admiral Rodriguez walked to the large display screen showing a map of human space. Red markers indicated the locations of all human colonies and military bases. The hegemony has been planning this for months. They waited until our exploration fleets were spread thin across the frontier. They know exactly how many ships we have and where they are stationed. Dr. Helen Grant spoke up from her position at the science station. She was Earth's leading expert on alien technology and had studied hegemony weapons for years. Their plasma cannons can cut through our strongest armor like paper. Their shield systems can absorb our missiles without taking damage. We are dealing with technology that is centuries ahead of our own. Jake felt a growing sense of despair as he listened to the military briefings. Every analysis pointed to the same conclusion. Humanity could not defend itself against the galactic hegemony. Their only choices were surrender or extinction. Admiral Rodriguez called for a brief recess, and the senior officers gathered around a smaller conference table. She looked at each person carefully before speaking in a low voice. There is something I need to tell all of you. Something that has been classified at the highest levels for over 300 years. The Admiral activated a secure terminal and entered a long series of passwords. The screen displayed a single line of text that made Jake's blood run cold. Emergency Protocol 77 Alpha has been activated. All senior staff report to Black Site Omega immediately. Commander Blake looked confused. Admiral, I have never heard of Protocol 77 Alpha or Black Site Omega. What are you talking about? Admiral Rodriguez stood up and looked out at the busy command center. During the colonial wars, our ancestors built something terrible, something so dangerous that it was hidden away and forgotten by almost everyone. The hegemony ultimatum has triggered automatic systems that have been dormant for centuries. Lieutenant Colonel Foster leaned forward. What kind of systems, Admiral? The kind that our enemies will wish had stayed buried forever. Admiral Rodriguez turned back to face the group. We leave for Saturn's moon Titan in 1 hour. What we find there will either save humanity or damn us all. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized that Earth's leaders had been keeping secrets that could change everything. The next 72 hours would determine whether humanity would bow to alien masters or unleash something that had been sleeping in the darkness of space for 3 centuries. The transport ship Hughes Falcon carried Admiral Rodriguez and her team through the asteroid belt toward Saturn. Jake Morrison stared out the viewport at the gas giant's rings as they approached one of its smaller moons. The moon had no official name on any star charts and appeared to be nothing more than a chunk of ice and rock. However, their destination was hidden beneath its frozen surface. Dr. Susan Carter sat across from Jake, reading through classified files on her tablet. She was Earth's top expert on ancient human technology and had been called away from her research. On Mars, her blonde hair was tied back and her blue eyes showed both excitement and worry as she studied the documents. I cannot believe these records are real. The technology described here should not be possible. Commander Peter Blake checked his sidearm for the 3rd time during the journey. Nobody had told him what they might find at the secret facility. But Admiral Rodriguez had insisted that all team members be armed. "Doctor, what exactly are we going to see down there?" Susan looked up from her tablet and shook her head. According to these files, the project was started during the darkest period of the colonial wars. Earth was losing badly against the rebel colonies, and desperate measures were considered. The scientists involved were given unlimited resources and told to create something that could end the war quickly. The Falcon landed on a flat area of the moon's surface near what looked like natural rock formations. However, as the team put on their spacesuits, Jake could see that the rocks were actually camouflaged structures. Hidden doors opened in the side of the artificial mountain, revealing an airlock large enough for their shuttle. Admiral Rodriguez led the team through the airlock into a corridor that stretched deep underground. Emergency lighting flickered on, as their presence was detected by automated systems. The walls were made of some kind of dark metal that Jake did not recognize. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, along with warning signs in multiple languages. The facility has been running on minimum power for 300 years. Dr. Carter checked her scanner as they walked deeper into the complex. Automated systems have been maintaining life support and basic functions, but most areas have been sealed off. They reached a large elevator that carried them down for several minutes. Jake felt his ears pop as they descended through multiple levels of the facility. When the doors finally opened, they stepped into a massive underground chamber that took his breath away. The cavern was artificial and stretched for kilometers in every direction. In the center sat something that defied everything Jake knew about human engineering. The ship was enormous, and its hull seemed to shift and move in the dim lighting. Dark metal flowed like liquid across its surface, while strange organic-looking tubes pulsed with faint energy. Dear God, what is that thing? Commander Blake stepped back instinctively as he stared at the vessel. Dr. Carter walked forward with her scanner beeping rapidly. According to the records, this is the U.E.'s Reaper. It was built using technology that combines human engineering with something else, something the files describe as biological integration. Admiral Rodriguez approached a control panel near the ship and entered another series of codes. The chamber's main lighting system activated, revealing the full scope of the vessel. The Reaper was over 2 kilometers long, and its design was unlike any human ship Jake had ever seen. The hull appeared to be alive with sections that expanded and contracted like breathing. The ship's AI system is called Harbinger. Susan read from her tablet as they walked closer to the vessel. It was designed to learn and adapt during combat. The biological components allow it to repair itself and modify its weapons based on enemy capabilities. A ramp extended from the ship's underside and touched the chamber floor. Lights came on along the boarding ramp as the vessel's systems detected their presence. Admiral Rodriguez looked at her team with a grim expression. The Reaper has been waiting for someone to wake it up. The hegemony ultimatum triggered protocols that have been dormant since the end of the colonial wars. They walked up the ramp into the ship's interior, and Jake immediately felt uncomfortable. The corridors were too warm, and the walls had a texture that reminded him of skin. Soft lighting pulsed along the ceiling in patterns that looked almost like blood flowing through veins. The air smelled of metal and something organic that he could not identify. The bridge was located at the ship's center and was dominated by a single command chair surrounded by strange control interfaces. As Admiral Rodriguez approached the captain's station, the ship's AI activated for the first time in centuries. A voice spoke through hidden speakers throughout the bridge. Harbinger AI systems online. Emergency protocols activated. Scanning for authorized command personnel. The voice was neither male nor female and had an odd echo that made Jake's skin crawl. Admiral Rodriguez, you are not registered as a command officer for this vessel. I am activating emergency command override. Admiral Rodriguez spoke clearly to the empty air. Authorization code 77 Alpha Omega 9. Override accepted. Scanning for suitable command personnel among present crew. Jake felt a strange, tingling sensation as invisible scanners examined him. Captain Morrison, you possess the required psychological profile for command interface with Harbinger systems. What does that mean exactly? Jake looked around the bridge nervously. Dr. Carter was studying her tablet with growing alarm. The AI selects its captain based on specific mental patterns. It needs someone who can make difficult decisions without hesitation. Someone who can embrace what the ship was designed to do. And what was it designed to do? Commander Blake asked, while examining the weapon control systems. Win wars by any means necessary. Admiral Rodriguez sat down in one of the bridge chairs. The Reaper was built during a time when humanity was facing extinction. Our ancestors decided that survival was more important than maintaining their moral boundaries. The ship's AI spoke again as its systems continued to come online. Biological integration systems activating. Weapons array charging. Sensor network extending. Estimated time to full operational status is 6 hours. Jake felt the ship around him change as the Reaper awakened from its long sleep. The walls became warmer and the pulsing lights grew brighter. Through the main view screen, he could see mechanical arms extending from the chamber walls to connect with ports along the ship's hull. The vessel was feeding on power and resources that had been stored for centuries. Captain Morrison, please approach the command interface. The AI's voice seemed to come from inside Jake's head now. Physical integration with ship systems is required for optimal performance. Jake looked at the command chair and saw that cables were emerging from its surface. The organic-looking tubes moved like snakes as they waited for him to sit down. Admiral, I am not sure about this. We have 54 hours before the hegemony. Deadline. Admiral Rodriguez stood up and faced Jake. The Reaper is our only hope of avoiding total surrender or extinction. Someone has to take command, and the AI has chosen you. Dr. Carter looked up from her scans with a worried expression. Captain, the biological integration will change you. The ship's systems will connect directly to your nervous system. You will be able to control the vessel with your thoughts, but it will also affect how you think. Jake stared at the waiting command chair and felt the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The alien ultimatum had left them with no good choices. Earth's conventional military could not stand against the galactic hegemony's superior technology and numbers. The Reaper represented a different path, but one that came with unknown risks. If I do this, will I still be human? Jake asked quietly. You will be human plus something more. The AI answered before anyone else could speak. You will become what humanity needs to survive in a hostile galaxy. Jake took a deep breath and sat down in the command chair. The biological cables immediately attached themselves to his arms and neck. Pain shot through his body as the ship's systems merged with his mind. For a moment he thought he was going to die, but then the agony faded and he felt the Reaper's immense power flowing through his consciousness. He was no longer just Captain Jake Morrison. He was the UE's Reaper, and the Reaper was him. Through the ship's sensors, he could feel every system coming online. The vessel's hunger for battle was now part of his own thoughts, and he understood why it had been hidden away for so long. The Reaper was not just a weapon. It was a predator that had been sleeping and waiting for prey. Fleet Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the massive hegemony armada assemble in the Nexus system. 3,000 warships from 7 different species had gathered for what would be the largest military operation in recent galactic history. The sight filled him with pride as he observed the perfect formations of vessels stretching across space. The Chronari commander was tall even by his species standards, with gray skin and 6 arms that allowed him to operate multiple control interfaces simultaneously. His red eyes surveyed the tactical displays, showing the positions of every ship in the fleet. Years of planning had led to this moment when the galactic hegemony would finally deal with the human problem. War Prince Moldon requests permission to board your vessel, the communications officer announced from his station. Vexstar nodded approval and waited for the Thrakari leader to arrive. The two commanders had worked together on previous campaigns against rebellious species and shared a mutual respect despite their different approaches to warfare. War Prince Moldon entered the bridge wearing his ceremonial armor and carrying the traditional weapons of his warrior culture. The Thrakari were known throughout the galaxy for their aggressive nature and skill in combat. His species resembled large reptiles with powerful muscles and razor-sharp claws. Commander Vexstar, the fleet stands ready for the assault on human space. Excellent. Vexstar activated the main holographic display showing their target systems. Our intelligence indicates that humanity has approximately 200 military vessels spread across 17 colonies. Their largest concentration of ships is defending their home system around the planet Earth. The two alien commanders studied the tactical information that had been gathered over months of careful observation. Hegemony spy ships had monitored human military movements and documented their technological capabilities. The data showed that human weapons were primitive compared to hegemony standards, and their ships were significantly smaller than most alien designs. The humans favor kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. Moldon examined the reports with interest. Their energy shields are weak, and their armor cannot withstand our plasma cannons. This will be a simple operation. Vexstar agreed, but maintained his professional caution. Do not underestimate any species, Prince. Humans have shown unexpected creativity in their expansion across this region. However, you are correct that their technology cannot match our capabilities. The fleet began moving toward human space in a formation that had been used successfully against dozens of other species. The hegemony had perfected the art of overwhelming force combined with superior technology. Most civilizations surrendered. After seeing the size of the armada approaching their world's dot meanwhile in human space, Captain Carl Evans received emergency orders aboard her ship, the UES Defiance. She was one of Earth's most experienced combat commanders and had been chosen to lead the defensive fleet at Titan. Carol was a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and scars on her face from previous battles against space pirates. All ships prepare for enemy contact. Carol spoke into her communication system as the human fleet took positions around Saturn's largest moon. Intelligence reports indicate we are facing overwhelming numbers, but we will make them pay for every kilometer of space. The human defensive force consisted of 40 frigates, 20 cruisers, and 10 carriers. They had been positioned to defend the outer solar system and buy time for Earth's planetary defenses to prepare. Carol knew that her fleet could not win against 3,000 enemy ships, but they could inflict casualties and gather intelligence about hegemony capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Steve Harris worked at his tactical station aboard the Defiance, monitoring long-range sensors. Captain, we have multiple contacts entering the outer system. The computer is having trouble counting them all, but estimates suggest over 2,000 vessels. Carol felt her stomach tighten as she realized the true scale of what they were facing. The reports from intelligence had been accurate, but seeing the enemy fleet on her screens made the situation feel hopeless. All ships maintain formation and prepare to engage at maximum range. The hegemony fleet approached the human defensive line with confidence. Fleet Commander Vexstar watched his tactical displays as human ships appeared on the sensors. The alien commander was impressed by the discipline shown by the human formation, but knew that courage could not overcome such technological disadvantage. Begin the attack. Vexstar gave the order and watched as hundreds of alien ships opened. fire simultaneously. Plasma beams and energy torpedoes crossed the space between the two fleets in streams of deadly light. The first human ship to die was the frigate UES Boston, which took a direct hit from a Thrakari heavy cruiser. The vessel exploded in a bright flash that lit up the surrounding area. Within minutes, 5 more human ships had been destroyed, while the hegemony forces had not lost a single vessel. Captain Evans watched her ships die on the tactical display while her crew worked frantically to return fire. The human missiles were having little effect against alien shields, and their plasma cannons were too weak to penetrate enemy armor. All ships concentrate fire on the lead Chronari vessel. Maybe we can take at least one of them with us. The human fleet fought with desperate courage as they were slowly overwhelmed by superior numbers and technology. Carol knew that every minute they could hold the enemy here was time for Earth to prepare its final defenses. Her ship shook as plasma beams struck the hull, and she could smell smoke from damaged systems. Captain, we have lost 60% of our fleet, Lieutenant Commander Harris reported as more human ships disappeared from his sensors. The enemy is requesting our surrender. Fleet Commander Vexstar opened a communication channel to the remaining human ships. His image appeared on Carl's main screen as he delivered what he expected to be the final terms. Human Commander, your fleet has fought bravely, but continued resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to hegemony military law. Carol looked around her damaged bridge and saw the determination in her crews. Faces. Alien Commander, we appreciate your offer, but humans do not surrender. You will have to destroy every last one of our ships. A hegemony fleet commander was surprised by the human response. Most species accepted defeat when faced with such overwhelming odds. Very well, human. Your species' apparent preference for death over submission has been noted. The battle continued for another hour as the remaining human ships were systematically destroyed. Carol's ship, the Defiance, was among the last to fall as plasma beams finally overwhelmed its shields and tore through the hull. As her bridge filled with smoke and flames, Caral activated the emergency beacon that would alert Earth to the hegemony fleet's approach. War Prince Moldon watched the final human ship explode and felt a mixture of respect and confusion. Commander, these humans fought to the last ship without a single surrender. I have never seen such behavior from a species facing extinction. Their psychological profile is unusual. Vexstar studied the battle reports as his fleet began moving toward Earth. However, unusual psychology cannot overcome physics. Their homeworld defenses will fall just as easily as this fleet. The hegemony armada advanced through the solar system, encountering only automated defense platforms that were quickly destroyed. The alien commanders felt confident that the conquest of humanity would be completed within days. They had studied human military capabilities extensively and knew exactly what to expect from Earth's remaining defenses. What they did not know was that their easy victory at Titan had been intentional. The human fleet had fought and died to maintain the illusion that conventional warfare was humanity's only option. While the aliens celebrated their overwhelming success, something ancient and terrible was awakening in the darkness near Saturn. The hegemony had made the same mistake that countless predators throughout Earth's history had made when hunting humans. They had assumed that what they could see was all there was to see. Deep beneath the surface of a frozen moon, the U-East Reaper was completing its final preparations, and its new captain was learning to think, like a weapon that had been designed to win wars that could not be won by civilized means. Captain Jake Morrison felt the U-ES Reaper respond to his thoughts as the ship rose from its underground chamber on Saturn's moon. The biological integration with the vessel's systems had changed him in ways he was still discovering. Through the ship's sensors, he could perceive space around him with clarity that no human should possess. He was no longer just a man commanding a ship, but something new that existed. Between human consciousness and alien technology, the Reaper emerged into open space like a nightmare in physical form. Its hull rippled and shifted as biomechanical. Systems adapted to the vacuum environment. Organic-looking tubes extended from the surface, while weapon ports opened and closed like breathing vents. The ship's dark metal surface seemed to absorb light, making it appear as a moving shadow against the stars. Engineer Roy Kim worked at his station, trying to understand the readings from his instruments. The ship's power systems operated on principles that human science could not fully explain. Captain, the energy output is increasing beyond what should be possible. The biological components seem to be drawing power from somewhere else. The ship feeds on conflict itself. The AI Harbinger spoke through the bridge speakers. Combat provides energy that conventional fuel sources cannot match. The Reaper grows stronger as battles intensify. Tactical Officer Julie Stone monitored the long-range sensors as they detected the massive hegemony fleet approaching Earth. Over 2,000 alien vessels were advancing in formation toward humanity's home world. Captain, the enemy fleet is 12 hours from Earth orbit. Should we intercept them? Jake felt the ship's hunger for battle, mixing with his own determination to protect humanity. The Reaper wanted to fight, and he could sense its eagerness to engage the enemy. Set course for the hegemony fleet. Maximum speed. The ship accelerated through space faster than any human vessel should be able to move. Space seemed to bend around the Reaper as it traveled through dimensions that normal physics could not access. Within minutes, they had covered distances that should have taken hours using conventional propulsion. Fleet. Commander Vexstar was studying tactical reports on his flagship when his sensor officer announced an anomaly. Commander, we are detecting a single vessel approaching our position. It appears to be of unknown design and is moving at impossible speed. Impossible speed? Vexstar looked at the sensor readings with confusion. Check your instruments for malfunction. All systems are functioning normally, sir. The vessel has just appeared on our screens at close range. It seems to have materialized out of empty space. War Prince Moldun joined Vexstar at the command station as they watched the strange ship approach their fleet. The vessel on their screens defied everything they knew about spacecraft design. Its shape constantly changed, and its surface appeared to be alive. Commander, what are we looking at? I do not know. Vexstar opened communication channels to his fleet. All ships maintain formation and prepare weapons. We have an unidentified vessel approaching our position. The Reaper moved through the hegemony fleet like a predator stalking prey. Jake could feel the alien ships around him through the ship's enhanced sensors. Their technology was advanced, but it followed predictable patterns that the Reaper's AI systems began analyzing immediately. Captain, I am detecting weaknesses in their shield harmonics. Julie Stone reported from her station. The ship's systems are automatically adapting our weapons to exploit their defensive frequencies. Jake watched his tactical display as the Reaper's weapon systems modified themselves in real time. The ship was learning from every sensor scan and adjusting its capabilities to counter the enemy technology. Target their command ship. Let's announce our presence. The Reaper fired its main weapon for the first time in 3 centuries. The energy beam that emerged was unlike anything in human military history. Instead of simple plasma or laser technology, the weapon seemed to tear reality itself as it crossed space toward the hegemony. Flagship, Fleet Commander Vexstar watched in horror as the beam struck his ship's shields and simply passed through them. As if they did not exist. The energy tore through his vessel's hull and destroyed half of his bridge crew instantly. Emergency alarms screamed as systems failed throughout the ship. All vessels opened fire on that thing immediately. Hundreds of alien ships turned their weapons on the Reaper and opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams and energy torpedoes converged on the human vessel from every direction. The space around the ship lit up like a star as massive amounts of destructive energy struck its hull. When the light faded, the Reaper was still there and appeared completely undamaged. Its biomechanical hull had absorbed the enemy attacks and was already adapting to counter future assaults. Organic-looking tendrils extended from the ship's surface toward nearby alien vessels. What is happening to our ships? War Prince Muldoon stared at his tactical display as several Thrakari cruisers began reporting system failures. The strange tendrils from the human ship had somehow made contact with his vessels despite the vast distances involved. Jake felt the Reaper's influence spreading through the enemy fleet as its biological systems made contact with alien technology. The ship was not just fighting the hegemony vessels, but infecting them with something that turned their own systems against them. The ship is converting enemy vessels to serve our purposes. The first alien ship to fall completely under Reaper control was a Valdorian destroyer. Its crew watched helplessly as their own computers locked them out of all command functions. The vessel turned its weapons on nearby hegemony ships and began firing on its former allies. Within minutes, 3 more alien ships had been converted and were attacking their own fleet. Engineer Kim studied the readings from his instruments with growing amazement and fear. Captain, the ship is rewriting the basic programming of VA. Enemy technology. It's turning their own vessels into weapons against them. The Reaper was designed to fight wars that could not be won through conventional means. Harbinger's voice filled the bridge. It does not simply destroy enemies, but transforms them into tools for victory. Fleet Commander Vex Star realized that his fleet was facing something beyond their understanding. The strange human ship was not just defeating them, but corrupting their technology in ways that should be impossible. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance. Do not allow that vessel to make physical contact with our hulls. But it was too late for a simple retreat. The Reaper had tasted battle, and its hunger was growing stronger with each passing moment. Jake felt the ship's biomechanical systems expanding as they fed on the energy from destroyed enemy vessels. The Reaper was literally growing larger and more powerful as the fight continued. More alien ships fell under the vessel's control as its influence spread through the hegemony fleet like a virus. The converted ships began working together with frightening efficiency as they turned on their former comrades. What had started as a simple battle was becoming a nightmare scenario for the alien commanders. Commander, we have lost over 300 vessels to that thing. The sensor officer reported as more hegemony ships disappeared from friendly identification systems. Our own technology is being used against us. War Prince Muldoon watched his proud fleet being systematically destroyed and converted by a single enemy vessel. How is this possible? One ship cannot defeat an entire armada. It is not just one ship anymore. Vexstar pointed at the tactical display, showing dozens of converted alien vessels now serving the Reaper. It has turned our own fleet into its weapon. Jake felt the power of the growing converted fleet flowing through his consciousness. The Reaper had demonstrated that humanity possessed weapons and capabilities that the galactic hegemony could not comprehend. The aliens had made the mistake of thinking they understood their enemy based on limited observations. Captain, the enemy fleet is attempting to withdraw. Julie Stone reported as hegemony ships began retreating toward the edge of the solar system. Should we pursue them? Jake considered the question while feeling the Reaper's desire to continue hunting. The ship wanted to follow the fleeing aliens and convert their entire fleet, but he retained enough humanity to remember the larger strategic picture. Let them go. We have made our point. The hegemony fleet retreated in disorder, leaving behind hundreds of destroyed vessels and dozens of converted ships now under Reaper control. Fleet Commander Vexstar stared at his tactical display, showing the remains of what had been the most powerful military force in the galaxy. A single human vessel had achieved what should have been impossible: send an immediate message to the Hegemony Council. Vexstar spoke quietly to his communications officer. Tell them that humanity possesses weapons beyond our current understanding. Request immediate ceasefire negotiations. The Reaper floated in space surrounded by its newly converted fleet, while Jake tried to process what had just happened. The ship had not simply won a battle, but had demonstrated capabilities that would change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. He was no longer just fighting to defend humanity, but had become something that other species would fear for generations to come. 1 week after the Battle of Titan, the UES Reaper hung in orbit above Nexus Prime like a dark omen against the stars. The biomechanical ship had grown to twice its original size by feeding on the remains of destroyed hegemony vessels. Organic tendrils stretched across its hull, while new weapon systems sprouted from the living metal surface. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, feeling the ship's hunger for continued conflict mixing with his own thoughts. The converted alien ships formed a protective formation around the Reaper, creating a fleet that combined human ruthlessness with superior alien technology. Each captured vessel had been modified by the ship's biological systems and now served as an extension of Jake's will. Through their sensors, he could monitor every movement on the planet below where the Galactic Hegemony Council was meeting in. Emergency session. Overlord Zethkri stood before the assembled leaders of 7 species in the council chambers deep beneath the planet's surface. The Valdorian leader who had delivered humanity's ultimatum just days earlier now faced the impossible task of explaining their complete defeat. His forearms gestured nervously as he addressed the other council members. The human vessel represents technology that we do not understand. Zethkri's mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Our best scientists have analyzed the battle data and cannot explain how a single ship defeated our entire fleet. The biological components appear to violate several fundamental laws of physics. Prime Speaker Kelleneth of the Zarian Collective leaned forward with her insect-like features showing clear agitation. You told us that humanity possessed only primitive weapons and small fleets. How could your intelligence have been so completely wrong? Our surveillance detected only their conventional military forces. Zethkri activated a holographic display showing human ship designs. These vessels match the specifications we observed. During months of careful study, the creature that attacked our fleet appears to be something entirely different. War Prince Muldoon entered the chamber, still wearing his damaged armor from the battle. The Thrakari commander had barely escaped the encounter with his life, and his usual warrior confidence had been replaced by something approaching fear. Council members, that thing is not just a ship. It is alive, and it feeds on conflict itself. I watched it grow larger as it consumed our vessels. Grand Admiral Hextalk of the Zephyrian Navy studied the tactical reports with his multiple eyes. The converted ships are using our own technology against us, but with modifications that should not be possible. The human vessel has somehow improved our weapons beyond their original specifications. The council chamber fell silent as the assembled leaders processed the implications of what they were hearing. For over 2,000 years, the Galactic Hegemony had maintained order through superior technology and overwhelming force. No single species had ever posed a serious threat to their combined might until now. A communication alert interrupted their discussion as a message arrived from the human vessel in orbit. The main display activated, showing Captain Jake Morrison sitting in what appeared to be a living command center. His eyes had changed since the battle and now held a coldness that made even hardened military leaders uncomfortable. Council members, I am Captain Morrison, speaking on behalf of humanity. Jake's voice carried new harmonics that suggested the ship's systems were enhancing his speech. You delivered an ultimatum to my species 1 week ago. I am here to deliver. Our response. Overlord Zethri stepped forward to address the transmission. Captain Morrison, we acknowledge that our previous assessment of human capabilities was incorrect. The Hegemony Council is prepared to negotiate a peaceful settlement of this conflict. Negotiate? Jake leaned back in his command chair and smiled with an expression that held no warmth. You threatened to exterminate my entire species. You gathered 3,000 ships to enforce your demands. Now you want to negotiate because one human vessel destroyed your fleet. The Reaper's influence on Jake's thinking had grown stronger during the weeks since the battle. The biological integration with the ship systems was changing him into something that was still human, but also something more. He could feel the vessel's hunger for dominance mixing with his own protective instincts toward humanity. What are your terms? Grand Admiral Hextalk asked while trying to maintain some dignity in defeat. Jake activated his own tactical display showing the current positions of hegemony forces throughout the galaxy. The 7 species of your council will withdraw from all disputed territories within 72 hours. You will recognize human sovereignty over any star system we choose to claim. Any future aggression against human interests will result in the deployment of additional vessels built on the same principles as the Reaper. The council members exchanged worried glances as they realized the implications of Jake's words. The humans had not just built one impossible ship, but possessed the technology to create an entire fleet of such vessels. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Prime Speaker Culleneth spoke with her voice showing clear distress. Captain, you are demanding that we abandon territories our species have controlled for centuries. Our people will not accept such terms. Your people will accept whatever terms allow them to continue existing. Jake's enhanced voice carried undertones that made the alien leaders instinctively step back. The Reaper has demonstrated that your technology cannot protect you from humanity's weapons. Do not force us to provide additional demonstrations. The transmission ended, leaving the council members in stunned silence. War Prince Moldon was the first to speak after Jake's image disappeared from their screens. We have no choice but to accept their demands. That ship and its captain are beyond our ability to defeat. Over the following days, news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy as hegemony forces began withdrawing from contested systems. Species that had lived under alien rule for generations watched in amazement as the most powerful military alliance in known space retreated before a single human vessel. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez addressed the United Earth Assembly from the rebuilt command center on Earth. The military leader who had authorized the awakening of the Reaper now faced the task of explaining humanity's new position in galactic politics. The threat to our species has been eliminated, but we must understand the price of our victory. Dr. Susan Carter presented her analysis of the Reaper's capabilities to the assembled government leaders. The ship represents technology that combines human engineering with biological systems of unknown origin. Captain Morrison's integration with the vessel is changing him in ways we cannot fully predict or control. The question of what Jake was becoming haunted Earth's leadership as they considered the long-term implications of their victory. The Reaper had saved humanity from extinction, but had also created something that might be more dangerous than the original threat. The ship and its captain now possessed power that could reshape this galaxy. Jake felt the Reaper systems pulsing around him as he contemplated their new position among the stars. The vessel's biological components were constantly growing and adapting while I learned from every interaction with alien technology. He knew that he was no longer fully human, but he also understood that humanity needed protectors who could think like their enemies. The Galactic Hegemony's intelligence services updated their files on humanity with new classifications that reflected the species' fundamental nature. No longer listed as aggressive expansionists, Humans were now categorized as something far more concerning in the galactic database. The entry simply read dormant. Apex predators with a warning that this species should never again be underestimated or threatened with extinction. The file included detailed analysis of human psychological patterns and their willingness to embrace aspects of warfare that other civilized species considered unthinkable. Deep beneath Saturn's moon, a facility that had housed the Reaper 4. 3 centuries began producing new vessels based on the same terrible principles. Automated systems that had been dormant since the colonial wars were now constructing a fleet that would ensure humanity's position at the top of the galactic food chain. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun not through diplomacy or trade, but through the demonstration that some species were simply too dangerous to threaten. The Reaper had shown the universe that humanity possessed weapons and capabilities that transcended conventional understanding of warfare. As Jake Morrison sat in his living command chair, feeling the ship's consciousness merge further with his own thoughts, he understood that he had become something that would be remembered long after his human life ended. The Reaper and its captain had saved their species, but had also announced to the galaxy that humanity had evolved beyond the need to play by anyone else's rules. The stars belonged to whoever was strong enough to claim them, and humanity had just proven that strength came in forms that other species could not imagine or defend against. The age of human dominance had begun with a single ship and a captain who had chosen to become something more than human in order to protect everything that made humanity worth preserving.